Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers beat the Rockies. Yeah, they actually beat the Rockies. We're going to talk about Julio Urias and his all-star chances. We're going to talk about Trayce Thompson, who had the big hit in the game. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Chris Taylor and take a look at the rest of the NL West. That's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moments sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Dodgers listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. And it includes engagement rings. So use code Locked On at checkout. This is Locked On Dodgers. You can find us wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. We are here every weekday, Monday through Friday. I'm Samperio. That's Jeff Snider. If this is your first time listening or watching. We are both lifelong Dodger fans that have spent some time covering the team in a variety of ways. And one of those ways that we now cover the team is through this podcast that you can listen to by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So, Jeff, let's talk Dodgers. The Dodgers beat the Rockies, who they have struggled to beat so far this season. It was or they were getting no perfect game, no hit, whatever it was, till the fifth. Then they broke open, got some runs. Those runs ended up holding up, even though it got a little dicey there in the ninth inning. But I don't think anything to be too worried about. But yeah, Julio had another strong outing. We'll talk about him right now. But just the joy of the Dodgers beating the Rockies, how it should be, is enough for this right now.
Yeah, for 4 innings, Kyle Freeland oppressed the Dodgers. He taxed them without representation, all sorts of stuff. And then in the fifth inning, they declared their independence from Kyle Freeland, who went to Thomas Jefferson High School in Denver, Colorado. On the 4th of July, the Dodgers said, give me 4 runs in the fifth inning or give me death. And luckily, Trayce Thompson was there to choose the former because that would have been sad.
Yeah. Let's stay on the topic of Trayce Thompson. We'll talk about Julio in the next segment. Trayce Thompson has had some big hits for the Dodgers so far. He's very much a feast or famine hitter, or at least he has been since he joined the Dodgers. A lot of strikeouts, but in between those strikeouts, he's had some big hits, couple home runs, and has given the Dodgers, maybe not exactly what they needed, but enough of what they needed when they went out and got him. And, just another thing to hold over against Padre fans, because Padres, they had him earlier this year. He didn't quite hit like he has here, or at least had an impact like he has here. And I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know how if it'll remain good enough to at least get in the lineup a couple of times a week. But the very least, he's brought something that we didn't see too much from last year, which is an impact from somebody that wasn't on the major league roster when the season started.
Yeah, and like you said, it really has been feast or famine. His strikeout rate is not ideal. He's striking out in 41% of his plate appearances. The funny thing is, though, if you look at his career, that's actually pretty much in line with what he did. Other than 2016, when he had a solid season with the Dodgers, pretty much every other year he's been in the high 30s or into the 40s. And that's just who he is. The difference is right now he has at least this would have gone down going into Monday's game. He has a 471 BABIP since coming to the Dodgers, which is probably not sustainable, but he does hit the ball hard, and so the guy strikes out a lot, but when he hits it hard. And when he hit that home run, I was thinking like the Dodgers, this year's version of the Dodgers don't get many surprise home runs or like I don't even know how to put it into words. Like when you have a team that's full of all-stars or potential all-stars, they get a big hit and you're like, yeah, that's what he should do, And I remember back in 2019 when they got the walk-off weekend with the rookies, when Beatty and Verdugo and Smith all hit walk-off home runs. And that was like, it was unexpected, especially, And Verdugo was just coming up. Really, all of them were unexpected. They are rookies. It was that fun excitement. And Hanser Alberto, I think, has hit one, maybe he's hit 2 home runs, but like not big home runs. And this, I feel like, was maybe the first one this year where we got an unexpected home run in a big situation. And maybe a home run from Trayce Thompson shouldn't be unexpected, but you get what I'm saying. I don't know if unexpected is quite the right word, but that surprise homer in a big situation is something that I've kind of missed, and I didn't realize it until tonight.
Yeah, I think, I mean, surprise, subjective to it, because from what we've seen from him so far, maybe not so much of a surprise. I mean, even with the high BABIP, I don't remember any of his hits off the top of my head that were like, oh yeah, that one just kind of sunk in. He's hit the ball hard. He's sitting at it within the 885 OPS in 13 games with the Dodgers, driven in 8 runs. Yeah, he has the strikeouts, but he's been putting the ball in play other than the strikeouts, and when he does, he hits it hard. And yeah, it's one of those things, like I said, last year, how many guys came up and we never got that unexpected home run. Really, you never even got that unexpected hit. Most of the time, didn't even get that unexpected making contact with the ball. I mean, last year it was pretty bad with Zach Rex and DJ Peters and the other guy Billy McKinney, yeah, and Steven Souza Jr. So
Yeah.
it's been just different for somebody to have an impact. Like I said, have an impact. Yeah, he's probably going to strike out a lot of the times, but if he doesn't strike out, he's probably going to do something good, which is basically what Trayce Thompson has been doing. And yeah, for it to come from him when he's just getting a start, mostly because there's a left-hander on the mound, it's good. And it's also one of those things where it's kind of in line with some of the other offense. I mean, Trayce Thompson's probably hitting home runs at a similar pace that Cody Bellinger and Max Muncy have done, with obviously way more at-bats over the course of the season. So it's just a matter of, we take what we can get at this point from anybody not in the top like 4 or 5 of the lineup and Gavin Lux.
Yeah. And, now that Mookie Betts is back, obviously Chris Taylor, we'll talk about him in a little bit. Were we going to talk about him in this segment? Well, then next segment. Okay. Then, but Trayce Thompson is going to get some at bats, but it's going to come to a point, hopefully, when everybody's healthy, Trayce will be kind of a bench bat. And, with the fact that Mookie Betts can play second base and Chris Taylor can play the infield, I'm in favor of Trayce Thompson being that right-handed bat off the bench instead of Hunter Alberto. Hope nobody heard that.
Yeah, well, that's definitely going to be a conversation once everyone kind of gets fully healthy. But also, like you mentioned, Mookie Betts did play second base or started the game at second base on Monday, ended up moving to the outfield once Chris Taylor came out of the game. We will talk about Taylor a little bit later. But it is one of those things with kind of everything moving around, a bunch of moving parts. I mean, I think Eric Steven just tweeted Mookie Betts played infield this season before Chris Taylor did, which is kind of interesting. And they always have that in their back pocket if need be. So because of all the other versatility and because they don't really have set outfielders other than Mookie and Cody Bellinger. I mean, technically Taylor's now kind of a set outfielder, but he can play infield very easily. Leaves you the chance to have somebody like Trayce Thompson, who only plays outfield, to be able to come off the bench or be a guy who faces lefties or whatever the case is, and hopefully he can keep it up. I mean, I don't know how sustainable everything is. He obviously has had issues staying in the major leagues for the last few years, but maybe this is the opportunity. He likes Los Angeles, and he'll just continue to shine.
And everybody on the team appears to love him. The Chris Taylor after the game, reporters asked him about that, and he just, you could tell by the way he talked about Trayce that everybody loves him and is so happy for him. And so, that's an important part of the team. And if you were to cut a guy like Hanser Alberto, who has brought that, the fun and the, I guess it's some sort of veteran leadership or something. But I feel like Trayce Thompson can fill that role too, because he is a guy who played the minors with some of these guys and played the majors with several of them, and is buddies with a lot of them.
Yeah. All right, we're going to talk about Julio and the other Dodgers starting pitchers and all their chances to make the All-Star team. First, let's talk about Blue Nile, because whether you're ready to pop the question or you're just celebrating a milestone moment, you can find jewelry as unique as she is with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. The best part about BlueNile.com is if you're somebody who isn't quite up to date with the latest rings and fashions and styles and settings and carats and all that kind of stuff, well, BlueNile.com can help you out because they have jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Now you don't have to just, ask your friends or her parents or whoever what she likes. You can have that in your back pocket and also talk to somebody. So BlueNile.com has all the simple online tools that let you choose everything you need to make each ring one of a kind. And right now you can make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com because Locked On Dodgers listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. And this podcast exclusive also includes engagement rings. So use code Locked On when you're making a purchase at BlueNile.com. That's code Locked On. And remember, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com. All right, we are back. And Julio pitched last night, pitched pretty well, went 6 innings, gave up the 1 run, struck out 7. And a guy that we maybe haven't given the proper flowers to so far this season. We've talked about him here and there every time he starts and kind of how he's had a weird season because he's pitching well, but he's not getting the run support that we remember him getting last year. So it's one of those where if you're pitching and you give up 2 runs over 6 innings, but the offense doesn't score, then you end up kind of being a little frustrated with Julio because he gave up 2 runs and the Dodgers haven't scored any. But either way, Julio's sitting now with a 2.57 ERA, 7.6 win-loss total. You can tell right there, 2.57 ERA and barely over 500. Something's going a little bit different. He's not doing it quite the same as he's done in the past with, blowing guys away and more strikeouts. He's pitching a little bit more contact. His whip is low, 1.03. And it's a matter of now you add him. I mean, he's part of the conversation. We've already talked about Tony Gonsolin. We've talked about Clayton Kershaw. And it's a matter of, realistically, are the Dodgers going to be able to get 3 guys that are all starting pitchers on the all-star roster? Probably not, but which one deserves it? I guess we can start with Julio and just kind of make the rounds.
Yeah, it's all 3 of them deserve to be on the All-Star team. I don't know. You've got, every team has to have a representative. They don't want too many people at one position on this from the same team. All that stuff. There's a lot working against them for the possibility of having 3 starters on the team. It seems like 2 has to be a lock, and Gonsolin, obviously is a lock. And so really it comes down to Julio or Kershaw. And Julio and Kershaw have the exact same ERA right now. It's probably not the same if you take it 1 digit further, but I haven't done that yet. But they're both at 2.57 right now, and the big difference is Julio has pitched significantly more innings, about 50% more innings than Kershaw has because Kershaw spent time on the injured list. So that's definitely a point in Julio's favor. Point in Kershaw's favor is he's Clayton freaking Kershaw. The All-Star game is often Hank Aaron made 24 All-Star teams. He wasn't deserving of all of those at the end, but he made them because he was Hank Aaron. And that's what happens sometimes. And I think that's okay. And so I don't know if Clayton Kershaw will get the Clayton Kershaw treatment. Kershaw hasn't made an All-Star team since 2019. I guess there wasn't an All-Star team in 2020, which really just means he didn't make it last year. So it's not as crazy as it seemed when I started that sentence, but still, it's been a long time. And he's only made 1 since 2017. So Clayton Kershaw, I don't know. My heart still wants Clayton Kershaw to start the game, and definitely at Dodger Stadium. There's all of that history of Clayton Kershaw. But if you're just looking at this season, I think Julio deserves it more.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. And it's a matter of, I think the one way the Dodgers can get 3 is once the people who aren't going to pitch start getting knocked off, then you add it. And I think if that's the case, you kind of, after a certain point, you kind of know what's going to happen or how it's going to go down. So you kind of know how many guys you might need or whatever the case is. And maybe it's a matter of, you throw Kershaw on there as the courtesy, but Julio is one of the first guys that gets the call once, somebody pitches on that Sunday or whatever the date is now that they go through it. So Yeah, definitely Julio deserves it, and it's one of those where I'm sure they would both. Kershaw would concede a spot to Julio because he's more deserving. He's pitched more. Julio would maybe concede the spot to Kershaw. I'm not entirely sure about that one, but possibly. And it's a matter of, hey, let's just hope that two of them make it, and then one of them can get on the back end with injury or not pitching kind of stuff. So, or maybe one of them is that guy, and they just change out for each other.
Yeah. Just for the record, Julio's ERA is better by 0.004888647472246. So about 4/1000ths of a point. So, I guess if that's the tiebreaker, Julio has a slightly better ERA, even though they both round to 257. But yeah, you make a good point about there's always more guys added to the roster. And if that's the case, I wouldn't be surprised if they go with Kershaw as the initial one, because you don't want, if you're putting Kershaw on the team out of sentimentality and Dodger Stadium, all that, put him on the team, and especially if you're going into it knowing, okay, we're going to have room for Julio too. Julio can be our add-on later, and go with Kershaw on the team right off the bat. Yeah, I would love to see three of them, but it's really important to me that Will Smith makes the team. The other guys, Mookie, obviously, I hope Mookie and Trey win their runoffs and get to start the game. But I for different reasons, it's not as important to me as Will Smith. Mookie and Trey have both made plenty of All-Star games, and Julio hasn't either. I guess that's another reason why Julio really needs to be on. So I don't know. I'm so torn. If we did this segment tomorrow, I'd probably have totally different things to say and different strong opinions leaning other directions.
Yeah, and that's just the way it goes, especially when the numbers are so close. And like I said, the main differentiator between Kershaw and Julio is innings. And then, Gonsolin's so far ahead that I don't think there's not much he can do in the next 2 weeks that are going to ruin anything on his end. So we'll see what happens. We'll continue to monitor, and we'll see the voting for Trey and Mookie in their respective things starts today at 9 a.m. So get your votes in if you want to see those guys there, because Trey's going against Dansby Swanson, and Braves fans are pretty up there. And then Mookie's also going up against someone from the Braves. So
Adam Duvall,
Braves
yeah.
fans. Yeah, Braves fans.
One other thought on Kershaw and Julio that I hadn't looked at before. If you look at their FIP, and that was one of the arguments that some people made against Tony Gonsolin being the starter because he doesn't have as good a FIP as Alcantara and Fried and a couple of guys. Kershaw's FIP is 287, which is just, in close to his ERA. Julio's is 394, and this is before Monday's game. But, still, because he doesn't have as many strikeouts as Kershaw, he's only 8.4 strikeouts per nine, where Kershaw's 9.5. And Julio had those 2 games where he allowed a ton of home runs, and those will bump up your FIP a lot. And so, that I guess if you were looking for an argument to make against Julio between him and Kershaw, FIP would definitely be one you could make. Although I don't like FIP as far as making an all-star team, because I think what's important is what actually happened, not what calculation thinks should have happened.
Yeah. All right. That's all the all-star starting pitching talk we got. We're going to come back, talk a little bit about Chris Taylor, what it means if he misses some time, and then just take a look at the NL West as things have shifted the last few weeks, mostly in the Dodgers' favor. So we're going to talk about that first. Let's talk about Rock Auto. With ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why go to the store? They don't have the part you need. They're going to have to order it for you. They're most likely going to try to get you to come pick it back up at the store. Why deal with all that? You have computers at home and in your pocket that have access to rockauto.com, and you can get everything you need sent directly to you and for cheaper. Why choose to spend up to 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership when you can just go to rockauto.com and get them for cheaper? The Rock Auto is a family business. They've been serving customers online for over 20 years. And guess what? You don't have to be a mechanic. You don't have to work for a dealership. Everybody gets the same prices. So go explore their easy-to-use website today. Find the solution to your auto part needs. And when you're searching on rockauto.com, see the parts available for your car or truck, When they ask, how did you hear about us? In that box, let them know Locked On sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. All right, Jeff, last segment here. Chris Taylor came out of the game early, and after the game, we found out it was because of his ankle or foot that's been bothering him. He said injured foot. Chris Taylor said, quote, it was feeling better before the game, and I thought it wasn't going to be an issue, and I was going to be able to play through it, but every inning it got worse and worse. Remember, he fouled the ball off his foot the other night. Didn't play Sunday, was back in the lineup on Monday, but came out of the game. It seems like he's going to sit at least a couple of days. They're going to have a CT scan, and hopefully it's nothing too big. But if it is, what can the Dodgers do lineup wise that won't make them miss a beat too much?
Yeah, that with how Chris Taylor's been hitting lately, I mean, he's currently going through one of those stretches where he he's so streaky, and when he's hot, you just think he's never gonna get out again. And when he's not hot, you think, how has this guy ever made contact with a baseball? And he's unfortunately currently in one of those cold streaks, so maybe a couple days off will help him anyway. Um, defensively, obviously, having Trayce Thompson as a replacement will help because if they just slot Trayce in, and the fact is, Trayce has hit just as well against righties as lefties for the most part since he came to the Dodgers this time. I don't know if that's a legitimate thing or not, but I think you can plug Trayce in. And defensively, you don't really miss much of a beat over Chris Taylor. Offensively, it depends on which version of each guy you're getting. But it is nice to have Trayce Thompson, whereas before this would have meant, okay, Gavin Lux, you're playing left field, and that Hanser Alberto is playing second base or something. You'd have a different fill in, and having an actual outfielder to fill in. Well, I think Gavin Lux has done as well as you could really expect him to do in left field. He hasn't quite taken into it as quickly as, say, Chris Taylor did when they moved him from infield to outfield. Chris Taylor was an excellent defensive outfielder within weeks, and Gavin Lux is still getting there. He has athleticism to get it done, but I like having Trayce Thompson out there as Chris Taylor's replacement a little bit more. Offensively, they have enough firepower. They've done well even this stretch. I mean, they've won 4 out of their last 5, even with Taylor struggling. And so, not that they don't need him offensively. Obviously, a good Chris Taylor is an important part of this offense, but I definitely think that they can withstand a couple days without him in the lineup. And hopefully that's all it is. Hopefully the CT3 scan comes back and says there's nothing structural, no major damage, and it's just a couple days off, and they can get him right and get him back in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ideal situation right there. A couple of days off, like I said, maybe resets him. He's striking out at a higher clip than at any point in his career so far. 35% K rate right now. He has 100 strikeouts in 73 games played. So it hasn't been that like that the entire season. He's definitely ramped it up a little bit here in the last few weeks. But like you said, it's just a matter of him being there kind of settles everything else in. And you know that he's good for a good at bat at the very least. He's hardly ever one to kind of strike out on 3 pitches. At least, from memory with me watching games, it's usually, he does foul some off, get some good counts, and then, just ends up striking out sometimes. But that's the way it goes. But speaking of struggling, the NL West, other than the Dodgers, is struggling. Padres, as the Dodgers just took 3 out of 4 from them, they lost again on Monday. The Dodgers picked up a game. They've gone 6-10 in their last 16, I think you said. The Giants, I believe, have lost 11 of their last 14. They're only 2 games over 500. And it's a matter of this is the time where the Dodgers can expand those leads. They're going to play the Giants and Padres a lot in the second half of the season. So that's what it's going to come down to as well. But if they can expand the leads now while those teams are struggling, then it's only going to help them later on and, maybe be able to even – well, I guess there's not as much. It's different with the way the seeding is now, where you kind of have to play through the year if you're trying to get a 1 or 2 seed and have a bye. But at least for the division, they may be able to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, and hopefully they just keep their foot on the gas and run away with this thing. Uh, they have 6 games against the Rockies at the end of the season, which you would think that would be a good thing, and maybe by the time that rolls around, it will be a good thing. How they've played the Rockies so far this year, who knows? But who even knows what the Rockies team is going to look like come October? But they also, I mean, the Dodgers play the Giants and the Padres a lot in the next couple months. And so the second half of the season, there's going to be a lot of intra division play. And, you know, it's nice to be the team in first place in that situation because we saw in this last series with the Padres, the Dodgers win that series. Not only did they gain 2 games on the Padres, they also knocked 4 days off the schedule. And so you go into every series knowing, if we can just win this series, it's a double win because you gain ground and you knock time off the calendar for the other team to make it up. And so that's a good situation to be in, and hopefully, an even better situation to be in is to go into a 3-game series with the Padres up by 8 games. So, okay, worst case scenario, we're down by 5. Best case scenario, we put this thing away, and that's what I would hope. And that, like you said, in the last 16 games, the Padres have lost 5 games of ground. They were half a game up by the Dodgers after they against the Dodgers when they swept the Cubs in a 4-game series. They were half a game up on the Dodgers, and now they're 4.5 back, and should be 6.5. But beggars can't be choosers, I guess. But hopefully, with the Dodgers, 2 more against the Rockies, and then a series against the Cubs, hopefully the Dodgers can keep doing their part, and the Padres and Giants can keep scuffling.
Yeah, and that's where I think the Giants are a little bit of a different conversation. I don't expect them. They'd have to go on a complete tear in order to really get back into the NL West race. But now they're kind of fighting against buying or selling at the deadline, and it's a matter of that extra wild card spot does make it a little bit more of okay, let's stick with it. Hopefully, some guys come back healthy, some guys bounce back, and we can get back into this wild card race, and then we still have a chance, with the pitching that they have with Rodon and Logan Webb in a 3-game series. There's still a chance for them to win and be successful in the postseason. But it's also a matter of, is that what we want to do? Do we want to try to, they try to run it back with the older guys. It's not quite working out. They have some guys on some 1-year deals. They have some guys on some 2-year deals, cheaper deals. And it's a matter of they can kind of reload as they continue to retool, similar to what the Dodgers did when Guggenheim first came in, and kind of how they've continued to roll throughout this entire process. So the Giants next couple weeks or next few weeks is a lot bigger, and it would help out the Dodgers if they do become sellers because they do play the Giants a lot in the second half.
Yeah, and the other fun part is the Padres and Giants play each other 13 more times this year, and so that's 13 games where they get to beat up on each other, and hopefully, they go 6-7 one way or the other, and just kind of drive each other down in the sand. Actually, hopefully, at this point, I guess I'd hope that the Giants win all 13 of them, or at least until they're tied, and then yeah, it's weird, following standings and basing. Some people can't ever root for the Giants no matter what's going on. I don't care about the Giants except how it affects the Dodgers. So when they're playing the Dodgers or they're chasing the Dodgers or the Dodgers chasing them, I pay attention to them. And so right now, Giants are in 3rd place. So I guess I'm rooting for them when they play the Padres. They play them next week. So, or later this
There
week.
we go. Yeah. And then, the rest of the NL West is Rockies and D-backs. As we know, Dodgers have owned the D-backs this year. D-backs aren't good. Dodgers haven't owned the Rockies, but hopefully we'll be changing the tide and hope win out the rest of the year against
Hey,
the
they've
Rockies.
won 2 in a row against the Rockies. I believe ownership has changed hands, and we're just not aware of it yet.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Jeff, you got anything else before we head out?
No, there's always so much to talk about, but luckily another game tomorrow, and it'll give us more to talk about. And I feel like on this team, there's guys who we probably should talk about, and doing one show a day, 30 minutes a day, just isn't enough to cover everybody. And so that's why I wanted to make sure to take time today to talk about Trayce Thompson in this moment, because we've kind of mentioned him here and there. We haven't had a chance to really devote much time to him, and he deserved it here today. And sometimes guys deserve. We could probably do a segment on Reyes Maranta, and maybe if he gives up another home run next time he pitches to tie the Dodgers record for most consecutive relief appearances allowing a home run, we might have to talk about him. But hopefully not. Maybe next time we talk about him, it'll be because he turned things around. But Phil Bickford has been really good lately. There's a lot of guys who deserve to be talked about, and hopefully we'll get to them in the next few days because hopefully they'll do big things for the Dodgers.
Yeah, that's the ideal spot. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about the Dodgers game against the Rockies. Chris Taylor bobblehead. Unfortunately, he probably won't be able to play. But either way, it's a fun bobblehead commemorating his walk-off from the wild card game. If you need something else to listen to, check out Locked On MLB Prospects with host Lindsey Crosby. He's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can also find us, if you're listening or watching, you can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vince Samperio. DMs are open on all those accounts if you need to get a hold of us. DMs are also open. Other ways to get a hold of us are email, the old-fashioned DM. Check out lockedondodgers@gmail.com if you have something to say, or voicemail text at 323-863-LOCK. That's 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Take your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.